Good afternoon. I'm Dan with Four Winds Ancestral Skills. Today I'll be covering how to make a Paiute deadfall, and as we often do, not using any modern tools. When you're out here in the woods, meat isn't always an easy thing to come by. There's obviously fishing, hunting, but another option is trapping. Trapping, you can set the traps and they will work for you while you're doing other things. So there are more efficient means than generally just grabbing a bow and arrow and running around the woods trying to find something. Now, of that trapping, if you're out there in the woods and you don't have the materials for it, you can do essentially primitive trapping. There's a lot of different styles, but in this video I'm going to go over the Paiute deadfall. It's my personal favorite primitive style deadfall. It's pretty effective. You're not going to be trapping moose or bears or something with this. Usually it's smaller animals, mice all the way up, squirrels, maybe rabbits, woodchucks. You're starting to get about the limit of it there. But there is a bit of a range that it will capture animals for you. Now, if you're in a survival situation, food is the #1 priority, but it is a priority. So keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that traps can be dangerous, so use precautions if you try to set these up. And one other thing to think of is the legality of it. Most primitive type traps are illegal to use for trapping in the wild. A kind of exception to that rule is I've used traps like this in my garage to capture mice. So if you're doing pest control, that's a little bit different matter, but in general, check with your local regulations as far as if you want to do any kind of trapping, because every place is different with their legalities of what traps you can use, how to trap, etc. If you're in a survival situation and you absolutely need to utilize this, then by all means trap whatever you can to survive. But just remember, if you're not, then you are subject to those rules. All right, enough talking. Let's go collect some resources and get our trap built. All right, we got all our components done here. This here is the vertical post we need. I use a Y stick for this. If you don't have a Y stick, you can use a straight stick and then just file right here down to a wedge, which will allow it to engage this other stick here. But if you have it available, I find these pretty useful. Also, on the back end of the post stick, you want a little notch to be able to engage the toggle, which I'll show you here in a second. We have the horizontal stick. I flattened this edge right here. That'll help engage the rock I have over here, kind of hold it a little more stable. Then on the back, I made a little notch in here, and then I use this natural cordage to engage into that notch. Also, I made a toggle like that. You kind of flatten off both sides, and that will engage the trigger stick. Now the trigger stick is a little bit more flexible. It doesn't need to hold a ton of weight. It just mainly needs to engage the toggle. So I just grabbed this stick here to use as an example. But ideally you would bait this end over here, and this side right here would engage the toggle. Now, this right here is our rock. I just have it propped up right now with a little stick. So that makes it a little easier to kind of get everything set up. Okay, to set this up, you're gonna get your post ready, your horizontal. You want to find a good solid point on the rock or log, whatever kind of material you're using as a deadfall. In this case, there's a flat spot right there. Then you want to take the toggle and kind of get it close. So in this case, right about there. Then lift up a little bit. All right, when we get to this point, we just take our bait stick and prop it in here to hold that toggle in place. All right, now the trap is all set up. I'll briefly go over kind of what's going on here. The toggle right here is under tension from the horizontal piece here, which is holding up the stick, or excuse me, holding up the rock here. I'll zoom in here. This trigger stick here is just wedged up against the rock back there. Now the idea is when you're baiting, you want to bait far back up in there here and on that trigger stick. It's the far corner. If the animal gets up in there, they'll have the least chance of being able to escape. All right, there you have it. Now, a few considerations that you want to take with Paiute deadfall and a lot of traps in general is location. Number one, where you're setting it, especially with a type of deadfall, you want to make sure the ground is fairly hard if you can, or on top of another rock. That way it actually falls and crushes the animal like it's supposed to, and not just falls, and the puffy soil underneath gives them kind of a cushion so it doesn't accomplish its job. Another thing is underneath this post right here, you want to make sure that it's on fairly stable ground. If it's kind of soft ground, it will, the way the rock will actually push it further and further into the ground and make your trap useless essentially. Another consideration with location is a lot of people recommend placing on game trails. Generally isn't what you want to do depending on the type of trap and depending on the type of animal you're going for. If you set a trap like this on a game trail that's frequented by deer, the deer very well might just step on or kick it and disturb it and then set it off, but you won't actually catch anything. So depending on what you're trying to catch, putting in an area where they are frequenting. Like I said before, I set up a trap like this in my garage where I know there's mice, and obviously I was catching some mice with it. All right, now one last thing to talk about is if you do put it near an area where the animal frequents, whether it's like a trail for whatever type of animal you're trying to catch, if you essentially put it in their way, they might stumble across that bait stick, possibly. But a better alternative to that would be to actually, it's a bait stick, so bait it. There's numerous different types of baits and anything that smells good essentially that intrigues the animal. For the mice in the garage, going back to that, for instance, peanut butter works great for mice, so that's what I used for that. You can use, oftentimes human foods work really well, especially for rodents like rats and mice, things like that. But just find whatever animal you're baiting, find what they like to eat in your area and go with that. One kind of easy thing is animals very universally are fairly attracted to salt and sugar. So anything containing a lot of salt or containing a lot of sugar oftentimes will attract most animals. Now when you're setting these traps up, it's good to set up a number of them because each one will have a certain percentage of success, but majority of them will have failures. Something else will set them off, or the animals just won't be interested, something or other. So it's good to set up a fair number of these if you actually want a good chance of catching something. Well, hope you got a lot of value out of this video, and hopefully you learned something along the way. If you have any questions, you can shoot me an email, fourwindsancestral@gmail.com. Put your question in the comments below, or you can join our Facebook page or group and comment on there as well. Anyway, I'm getting kind of hungry, so I'm going to go back and check the trap and see if we got anything. Oh, looks like something set it off. Haha! Score! Alright, there you have it. How to make a Paiute deadfall with no modern tools and just the resources we find out on the land. Well, if you enjoyed this video and hope to see content in the future, please like and subscribe this video and check out our links below. We have a Facebook page, a Facebook group, and of course our website, fourwindsancestral.com. Anyway, I'm Dan with Four Winds Ancestral Skills, reminding you to get out there and make history. Take care.